It's time for the Charlotte FC podcast. All right, welcome to another edition of the Charlotte FC podcast, and I am delighted to have Jessica Charman back on the show, and this time it's for a whole nother reason. And Jess, first of all, welcome back. It's been an adventure.
I am so glad to be back, and it's been an adventure. That's a great way to put it. It's been a wild 6 months, but delighted that the stars have aligned and we have a good reason to reconnect.
Yes, and I can't believe you got the prime matchup, in my opinion. And this is not just a Charlotte FC thing. Like, you have the match. You have two teams that have been playing so well lately. And by the way, didn't you do your first MLS match in New York?
Yeah, I did actually. Yep, I did New York versus Chicago, and then I called the repeat of that game last weekend. I called New York this Wednesday. So all I'm saying is it's been very nice to have New York consistently before I have Charlotte again, because as a broadcaster that worked for a club, you obviously, it's not necessarily even biases. You just have more natural knowledge of a team that you worked for 3 years. So to be able to have recency bias now with New York City having called their last two matches going into this one, it just helps you have an understanding of the club and helps with the evenness of the broadcast we're going to produce on Saturday.
Yeah, and I think you can see more tendencies because as much as a team likes to play, it's how they're playing in that current moment is what you see. So you've had an up-close advantage of seeing them not only the last 2 weeks, but also knowing how Charlotte plays and probably watching Charlotte from afar. Just some stats on this. This is history in the making if it happens. 10 in a row would be the first time, but Charlotte's in their last 10 matches, 9 wins in a row, of course, and then the previous one was a draw. They were actually in ninth place at 26 points when they met New York, which started the streak back in July. And New York was in 7th place at 31 points, and they have actually in their last 10 won 7 matches, 2 losses, and 1 draw. So I think these are the hottest teams in MLS.
They are. And what is so special about it is also not only are they hot and consistent, but they're both playing really exciting attacking soccer. The match yesterday for New York City was incredible. They trailed Columbus Crew twice. I know Columbus right now on the table don't look necessarily like one of the best teams in the league, but anyone that's watched Wilfred Zaha's side knows how good that Columbus Crew can be. For Charlotte FC, it's just unprecedented right now. It's funny because every weekend when I'm calling games, I like to have a look, and I always will look to the Charlotte FC result because I care about the team. And when you get an opportunity to see, every time I would open it up and I'd be like, wow, they won again. Wow, they won again. No way, they won again. And even this most recent week, I was in the middle of a broadcast while the game was happening, and we were getting score updates, and we have obviously a sponsored segment on Apple with the scores. And I just couldn't believe it that they were beating into Miami. And that's not a disrespect to Charlotte FC. It's just how unlikely it is to go on a win streak like this. From a selfish standpoint, the opportunity to potentially call such a big moment in history, it is really exciting. And either way, just what Dean Smith has done. But I love looking at this table because, Nick, so many MLS pundits that have been in this game even longer than I have. Obviously, I've been paying attention to MLS really since I arrived in America. So we're looking at 2013, 2014. This Eastern Conference standing is incredible when you look at the top to the bottom of the playoffs and there's 10 points in between them. It's wild that there's a possibility that, and we were talking to Dean Smith just earlier today, and he said, the thing is, we're not even guaranteed, like we can drop as low as the play-in game at this point. So yes, our postseason is alive, but we can't take our foot off the gas because all it takes is a couple of poor results and all of a sudden you're not in a hosting position.
Yeah, and New York creeping in there. They still have a game at hand against most of these guys, along with Miami, that they can creep up there into, I believe, even with a win, they would be in 4th under Charlotte, even if they are tied because of wins. But still, like having them go into that spot, and nobody's talking about New York.
No, they're a bit of a dark horse. And I think what Pascal Janssen has done with this side, they've had some bad results, but ironically, their bad results have occurred against weaker teams. They have one of the worst records against teams that are low in the table. You mentioned one of those losses in recent form was against DC United, 2-1. they do well against good teams. I use Columbus as an example again, yet again, recency bias, but Columbus have fantastic players. Columbus led twice, yet New York City were able to show resilience. And the biggest thing about this New York City side that I think Charlotte's going to have to be aware of is that they don't lay down and die. They're not a team that Charlotte can get the first goal and feel comfortable, as they showed against Columbus, where Columbus led twice. New York City end up winning 3-2.
Two.
Or even in Chicago, where Chicago scored early in that match in Chicago, and yet New York City were able to turn the screws and eventually win 3-1. So it's a tough match. I think that I even got a text from good friend Willie P over at WFNZ, and it basically said, goodness gracious, out of all the games that we should have for that 10th win, this is starting to look like a really tough one to make history.
Oh man, yes. And speaking that, you're talking about different players. I want to key in on a couple players for this matchup. Of course, you got Wilf and Idan. Can you talk a little bit about them and what you see, how their play could disrupt New York?
Yeah, I mean, I love Wilfred Zaha, and I followed his career during his time in England. I know he gets a lot of tough love just because of his personality type, but I don't think Wilfred Zaha would be the player that he was if he didn't have that personality type. We saw a glimpse of what a good teammate he can be, and you can't understate the moment of giving the penalty away to Idan Toklamati to get the hat trick against Inter Miami. But what I like about Wilf is maybe he's not scoring as many goals as he would like personally when you look at a number, but his involvement in getting others involved, his trickery. And then an underrated part of his game is drawing the fouls, one of the most foul players in the entirety of Major League Soccer.
Right.
And once he's able to control it, not let it get under his skin and see it as number one, a compliment. If players are fouling you, that means they can't handle you. They're scared of you and they want to commit the foul. Number two, now you're allowing someone like Ashley Westwood. We've seen how good Ashley Westwood's service can be from a dead ball. You're allowing opportunities for others to get into the end of the play on a small pitch like New York City. Any free kick in and around the attacking half becomes an opportunity to score a goal. So I think Wilfred Zaha getting into good areas on the pitch, drawing contact, luring this New York City side rather into making fouls, as we saw them do against Columbus Crew, could be beneficial. Idan Toklamati, I didn't get an opportunity to really witness him during my time at Charlotte FC, and I'll be completely transparent. I'm blown away with just how quickly he has shone. Dean Smith has been extremely transparent with us as broadcasters that with Patrick Agyemang knowing that he wasn't going to sign a contract and knowing that he wanted to be out of this team, that he wasn't too concerned about it. He already thought that Toklamati was challenging for Patrick Agyemang's minutes. And when Patrick went to Gold Cup, he obviously filled his boots. What I think Toklamati does differently is his hold-up play. He does a great job of holding up the ball, connecting with others. With Patrick Agyemang, a lot of what we saw with Big Pat's success was direct balls forward for him to run onto.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dan Toklamati is more of a diverse forward. He's comfortable holding the ball up, bounce passes. He's great in the air, as I love this picture that you have going on here. His aerial presence from set pieces, and then just the diversity of the goals he's scoring. He's scoring all sorts of different goals. I think he has been an absolute find, and it's another testament to the front office at Charlotte. We talk about Adilson Malanda all the time. We talk about even Pep Biel, who's available for selection coming into this game. That's a great opportunity to have Pep, particularly in the tight spaces of New York City's pitch. A player like Pep, I think, can be very impactful. He's very good in those tight-knit spaces and great ball control. That sort of Spanish flair of moving all around is going to be important in this game. I think the front office deserves a lot of credit because maybe Charlotte, you can put Zaha in there as a big name signing, but maybe Zaha doesn't have a Son or doesn't have a Marco Reus or doesn't have a Messi. But what they're doing in finding players in intricate leagues that a lot of outsiders have never heard of is very impressive to me.
Yeah. Let's talk about New York on the other hand. I got a couple of players that I think you would agree are having some good seasons for them. And so these three players, so I wanted to point out Alonso Martinez, Maxi Moralez, and of course Hans Wolf. Like those guys are really threatening, and kind of people to be like, wait a second, this is where the scoring and the assists are coming from mainly.
I can't believe Maxi Moralez still continues to do it at his ripe old age, 38 years of age, and still contributing consistently. He is little in stature, but big in heart, and his ball control, his movements. I mentioned that tight space again. Maxi Moralez is the sort of player that you need in those tight spaces, always finding an angle out, calm under pressure, calm in possession, and has an eye for a great pass. I thought Alonso Martinez was actually pretty poor against Columbus Crew, but as a whole is an extremely exciting player, very direct. Again, we talk about the pitch whenever you're playing in New York, small baseball pitches allow for transitional moments. He is going to lurk on the back shoulders of whoever's playing centre back for Charlotte FC, and they need to be able to clear the ball, because if they don't clear the ball, it's one-on-one. And Christian Kleiner, one of the best goalkeepers in the league, but he will be challenged in those moments because Alonso Martinez running through on you is a scary sight. Hannes Wolf was an interesting one because he hadn't scored consistently for a long period of time, but he's broken that dry streak now with the brace in and around the right areas of the pitch. One of his goals was a poacher's tap-in. One of them was a fantastic finish. His goals got the headline, but his trickery on the flanks is also very dangerous. So I think the attacking combination of New York City is huge, but a picture that there isn't of is Matt Freese. And I talked about good goalkeepers. We know, Nick, I've got a goalkeeper bias.
I was waiting this for the last one. I knew you wanted to talk about goalkeepers. So
you knew me. This is why I have so much respect for you, because you saw where my brain was going. I think that Matt Freese will be disappointed in the second goal he conceded. I think he got his bearings a little wrong and was caught off guard by the Abu Ali header, which is why I think it caught all of us off guard. Honestly, even as broadcasters, I was like, wait a minute, how did that find its way into the back of the net? But he's a good goalkeeper, full of confidence, good with his feet, which you have to be, again, in these tight areas. But Christian Kleiner just goes from strength to strength. And what I think is fascinating about Christian Kleiner is when you have a player that has a breakout season, or a season where he finally got the respect that he deserved, like his 2024 goalkeeper of the year season, it's very hard to replicate that again. And you saw some of the difficulties of replicating that earlier on in the season. He sat on the bench for a little while, but that worked as a good motivator. Dean Smith has always been very hard on Christian Kleiner, in my opinion. He talks about making the saves he's expected to save. He doesn't get overexcited about anything Christian Kleiner does.
It's very rare to give a compliment to Christian Kleiner.
Yeah, and I mean, but I quite like that. I think that's the hard approach that makes Christian Kleiner want to play even better. Bringing in Drake Callender as competition, it's motivated Christian Kleiner, and I can speak from experience. When I was playing in goal and I got a little complacent with the competition I had behind me, when I thought, okay, it's my starting spot, I probably wasn't playing at the best level that I could. I wasn't practicing as hard as I could. The minute you bring someone in there that you know has the opportunity to take your jersey, all of a sudden you're shuffling that much quicker. You're holding that ball that maybe you were parrying away a little lazily. You're popping back up to your feet a little quicker. You're seeing that with Christian Kleiner in his performances. And I just love watching him go from strength to strength. And the Leo Messi penalty save was I'm not going to lie, I wish I'd had an opportunity to talk about that on air. That would have been good. But alas, they did a fantastic job.
Yeah. So looking at this match kind of from you spoke to both coaches, like from a tactical standpoint, they're both going to do what they do best. So what do we see Charlotte doing best that's making New York be like, wow, this is too tough for us?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because, again, I don't want to drum on about the pitch, but I do think the pitch changes things a little bit. Dean Smith was honest about how they're going to need to be so much better in tight spaces. They're going to have a lot less time when they move the ball. They're going to have to make better decisions of when to play the ball, when to go long. Even with using Christian Kleiner as a bounce pass, it's difficult because the minute the goalkeeper has the ball, if you pressure them, they don't have time to think. So decision-making is going to be key in those moments, and making sure they don't play into New York City's hands, handling the pressure. The transitional moments have to be smart for Charlotte FC. New York City likes to play in transition. Charlotte FC has some really good moments in transition. So picking when to possess and picking when to spring forward. And it's also just about being clinical with this New York City side. Defensively, Yes, they haven't necessarily shown that in the last couple of games with the goals they've been conceding, but
Mm-hmm.
defensively they've been very good, very tight knit. A player like Justin Hack, I love how he plays in the back line for New York City, stepping into dangerous areas. When he steps, they have to find ways to punish and utilize that space left in behind. That's where I think a player like Idan Toklamati or Wilfred Zaha can be really impactful. And I'm interested to see how the midfield looks for Charlotte, because we've seen the rotations with Brant Bronico, Gianni. You've obviously got Ashley Westwood, who is a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
But whether or not Pep Biel, we saw him come off the bench, how long he can go, because I do think he is suited in a lot of ways to a match in tight spaces. And a player like Gianni, who I've always been high on, I think he has the potential to be one of the most impressive players on this team. The issue is his consistency lets him down in some moments. Gianni has great footwork, particularly for a big, gangly.
Yeah. And he could be physical too.
Exactly. But he's going to have to choose when to use that great footwork and when to release the ball under pressure, because New York City will swarm you and make you uncomfortable, and they will go with numbers and step and jump lines. You have to be able to choose when to go long and when to try and play through that pressure.
So is that really what New York's going to try to do to frustrate Charlotte? Is going to pounce on them in opportune moments?
I mean, they made Columbus Crew look uncomfortable, and Columbus is one of the best known possession teams. But I don't want to call Pascal Janssen's side a one-trick pony either, because they outpossessed Columbus Crew yesterday. They had a higher percentage. So where this New York City side is really dangerous is they can press, they can be dangerous, but they also, when they want to string a few passes together, can string a few passes together. Don't forget, though, New York City's had such a quick turnaround. A Wednesday to Saturday is a pretty quick turnaround. A Wednesday to Saturday at noon is an even quicker turnaround. The fresh legs of Charlotte FC and the fact they've been able to have a proper week of practice versus New York City that's had game, recovery today, I'm sure. I think that's an advantage for Dean Smith's side.
Yeah, especially after playing a team like Columbus. It is good that they had possession, but you can be chasing Columbus all over.
Yeah, shadows. Columbus love to move the ball, but who would have thought Columbus would be sitting where they are on the table right now? It is realistic that Wilfred Nancy's side could be in a play-in game at the end of this season.
It's incredible. Well, that's the kind of season we've had. So the last part of this, I wanted just to talk to you about your adventure here. So like you said, you've been working in Charlotte FC, and you worked previously with Atlanta United, and then you get this opportunity to go and just step out, and not only step out as other roles in women's soccer, but also you get this chance with MLS, and you get the chance to be the broadcaster, to be the commentator that we know you had in there. And it's kind of like, I'll do color, but I'm really a play-by-play person. So tell me about how that's gone for you and your feelings now.
Yeah, it's really funny because when I left Charlotte, it wasn't an easy decision at all. And it was a risky decision. I went from a stable position with a club that respected me, with a team that utilized me and allowed me an opportunity to talk about the professional game week in, week out, where I was guaranteed games.
Right.
And I took a jump and I betted and counted on myself. When I left Charlotte, I always knew I wanted to get back into Major League Soccer just because of the passion I have for this league. But I gave myself a realistic timeline. I thought it would take 2 to 3 years to really build my resume, to build my credibility, to get my reps in, and to earn that position. It was a great start to the season with NWSL. I was doing a lot of play-by-play with USL Super League, USL Men's Championship, which was important to me, again, to be a voice in both men's and women's sports. The best way to be a pioneer and to be a leader by example is showing that you want to be involved in both the men's and women's game. I just want to be a play-by-play commentator and do as much soccer, as much football as I can. And then I got the call in May where Apple had heard some of my stuff. They were very interested in making sure that they could diversify their voices, and they felt that I was ready, having listened to my tape. They took a bit of a gamble on me, and it paid off. And ever since then, I've been getting a lot of matches, so I'm doing something right. They have me working with a talent coach called Jill Montgomery, who has really developed who I want to be as a broadcaster and has helped me. I was really coming into this as someone that loved the game, that played the game, that was passionate, but maybe didn't have the media or the broadcasting background that a lot of
Right.
players have. I didn't go to an elite broadcasting journalism program. I just learned on the job. So it's been really nice to get that structure and continue to develop.
And they just brought that in. They're like, or they said, "Hey, would you be willing to work with this person?"
Yeah, they basically connected me with her. She works with a lot of the Apple talent and helps us fine tune the little things and gives us a little bit of structure to thrive in. And it's so nice to me now. I don't go into a match, and I wouldn't say I was a headless chicken, but just like,
right,
all my thoughts out there. I have a bit more of a structure, and I found the balance of structure, passion, knowing where I want to be. And I know when I listen back to my first game, and you know this too, from my first game to game, I think I'm on game 15, 16 now. It is such a difference. And I'm proud of myself for taking on all of the feedback. I'm proud of myself for continuing to develop reps. I'm proud of myself for blocking out the noise, because obviously at Charlotte, I was I don't want to say a club legend, that sounds, but at Charlotte, I was a very popular personality. I was well known. It was easy because when you're the voice of a team, no one's going to get mad at you for having an opinion, because you're sharing the opinion. You're almost a fan. When you become a neutral voice, you aren't going to be liked by everybody, particularly if their team is losing or you make a comment about their team. So I've had to learn how to deal with that. But it's been a fantastic opportunity. And I will be completely transparent. One of the main reasons I know I got this look is because they wanted to diversify their voices. They wanted a female broadcaster. But being a female gets you the in. It might open the door. It doesn't keep the door open. And so I'm very proud of myself for continuing to keep that door open. And I do that from working my butt off, saying yes to everything, and just taking feedback the right way and being open to develop as a human being. Am I the broadcaster I want to be in 10 years' time? No. But when I look back to who I was 10 years ago, calling college games, climbing a ladder after I'd finished playing a college game, I'm pretty happy with where she's at now.
Yeah, I remember we were messaging before that first game, and you were saying some things like, just your nerves basically were coming out, and you were like scrambling all this stuff. And I was like, you're going to be fine. Just be yourself kind of thing. And like you said, you went ahead and did that. And you realized that, you had a lot to offer, and that you were just going to do the best you could and, see what happens.
It's about never having regrets, right? I think that's the biggest thing. And am I going to call a perfect game every time? Absolutely not. There's no such thing as calling a perfect game. But is it going to be my best game? I'm not necessarily going to have a better game than I did on Wednesday, on Saturday, but it's about learning and making sure that I listen to it, take feedback, get better, grow. And then the other part about it is not beating myself up about that. If I have a stumble on a word, it's not the end of the world. Having that goldfish memory, if you want a Ted Lasso reference, is important. And then the other part I think that is really pivotal is staying true to yourself and making sure the reason if I have a bad game, it's not going to be because I didn't prep well. There's never going to be that reason. I'm never going to let myself down from not trying hard enough. And that's huge to me as well.
That's awesome. Well, we're going to enjoy the story that you tell that unveils itself on Saturday. Thanks for your time. I know it's been a crazy, crazy time. Like you said, just barely enough time to see your family. So go ahead and enjoy them before you have to go call this match.
Well, Nick, I'm looking forward to it. And I will see you on September 27th because I have the home game as well. So I will see you against Montreal.
Awesome. Take care. Again, thanks for listening to another episode of the Charlotte FC podcast, where we bring you the fascinating people who work for and around Charlotte FC and the world of football. The Charlotte FC podcast is edited and produced by me, Nick Finelli, and Eli Finelli. Please help us out and share this episode with others. 5 stars, and follow CLTFC podcast on Instagram, X, and YouTube. Until next time, enjoy the day.